I'm going to talk a little bit about what you need to know in these last days and Bible prophecy and how everything is being fulfilled and will come to pass. Now, it's very important to explain how people misunderstand the Bible and the seriousness of the situation of what the future holds. Now, most Christians believe that it all started in a garden, Adam and Eve. The serpent tempted Eve with the apple, and when she ate it, it introduced a curse, and all of creation fell. And the biblical narrative states that a future man would come to reverse that curse, which would be Jesus, the Christ. So when Eve ate the apple, it introduced sin into the world. It basically altered her genetics, and that's why she gave birth to a murderer. Her first son committed the act of murder. And the prophecy was that the heel of the man shall bruise the head of the serpent, which basically means that a future man would come that would be able to conquer the devil. So now that sin got introduced into the world through the actions of a woman and her husband, we have sin in the world. And Jesus, his job is to take that sin away in order to give us access to heaven and grant us eternal life. Now, all this is beautiful, and if you believe it, more power to you. But I'm going to tell you what this story really means and how it relates to 2023. So, the goal of the serpent or the snake or Satan or the devil was not so much necessarily to introduce sin into the world as you may think, or what's been taught to you or preached to you by the religious establishment. That was not the goal of the devil, contrary to popular religious belief. Yeah, Satan tempted Eve, gave her the apple, she ate it, and sin was introduced into the world. No. You see, the goal of the devil was to destroy the sixth sense in man. That was the goal. The destruction of the sixth sense. Now, the sixth sense is your spiritual sense. It's what allows you to connect to God and the spirit realm. Satan's goal was to eliminate this and remove it from man, out of man and woman. Now, Jesus' mission, his real mission, what he came for was to restore the sixth sense back into man. So it's kind of like, say you have cable and you're getting all these wonderful channels, and then some bad person unplugs your connection and pulls your cable wire out, and now all of a sudden you've lost connectivity and the channels are messed up and you don't have access to all the channels that you used to have. Jesus would be like the cable guy. He comes to plug the cord back in the socket and restore the connection. So, this is what the symbolism of the Last Supper was all about. Take this cup, drink it, it's my blood. Eat this bread, consume it, it's my flesh. The drinking of the blood and the consumption of the bread, it was to restore the sixth sense back in man and to put Jesus' genetics back into the human genome, so that way people, their senses would be activated. So this is the real fight. This is the real struggle. The struggle is technology versus spirituality. And we'll see it unfold in the last days we're going to see it play out. So yes, the biblical narrative is beautiful and it's nice and it's what we're familiar with, but there's more to it. And these biblical stories are telling us something else, not what you think it is, but something drastically different. So once again, I want to reiterate, Satan's goal is the elimination and destruction of the sixth sense in humankind. What the devil wants to do is destroy your connection to God by destroying the sensory apparatus that connects to the spirit realm. This is why babies and children are intuitive. They have heightened spiritual awareness. But as we get older, that spiritual sense diminishes and we lose it, because this is part of the curse. And it's something that has to be developed and restored through spiritual awakening, spiritual practice. You can cultivate this sense. So this is the story. The serpent tempted Eve. Eve ate the apple. And this is why God said, the day you eat of this apple, you shall surely die. Now, as the story progresses, notice that Adam and Eve never died. So the Bible wasn't talking about physical death. It was talking about spiritual death and the loss of the connectivity to the spirit realm. So after they ate the apple, they died spiritually. It was a spiritual death, meaning they lost their connection to the spirit realm. So their ability to access the spirit realm was compromised. And this is exactly the devil's plan. He got us right where he wants us. So the elimination of the sixth sense was the goal. Now Jesus comes to restore the sixth sense back into man by giving us his genetics, or reintroducing the spiritual gene back into the human genome and essentially creating bloodlines. So Christ put his genetics back into the human genome and produce spiritual bloodlines. So he activated the sixth sense back into man. Now, you might wonder, what does this all mean in a modern day context? Well, as we see the progression, the rapid acceleration of technological advancement and how it's changing our world literally in front of our eyes, different innovations, particularly the brain chip introduced by Elon Musk, although it's marketed as something that can help cure spinal cord injury. And this is very commendable. And you have to respect technological advancement and how it can assist human beings with various complications that they face with their physical health. But we cannot ignore the fact that this is a brain chip. This is a microchip that's surgically implanted inside of your brain. So when you read Revelations and it talks about the mark of the beast, it says that you'll receive it in your forehead or in the palm of your hand. So you can pretty much see the similarity here. So a microchip lodged in your head or implanted in your hand. So the more we depend on technology, this could potentially lead to a departure from spirituality. And I believe that this is the final struggle. This is the last fight. The battle is between technology versus spirituality. Now, it's important for me to say that I am not anti-technology, because that would be ignorant. I believe technology has its place. I believe it has a strong value in our society. And I believe in the good of technology. However, if misused or mismanaged, it could have negative consequences for the human family, for us as a human family. So it's important to recognize the Bible that it's not an antiquated piece of literature. It's not some old book that bears no relevance to today's modern society. It's actually speaking directly to the current times we're living in. You see, the Bible was written in antiquity, but the message was for modern times. So this is why it has prophecies, coming events that will be fulfilled, things that will come to pass, because the people of old were able to see the future. So the ancients of that time saw down the timeline of human history. They were able to see the trajectory of where mankind was heading and the direction we were going. And they wrote this information down essentially as a love letter, as a cautionary warning message. And now we pick up this book and we struggle to understand it. And we can't really interpret what it is that they're saying. But it bears very much relevance to today's time. You know, the Bible speaks about a time when the iron bird would be in the sky. Well, what do you think the iron bird is? That would be the airplane. The Bible speaks of a time where chariots would race the streets with flaming torches. Well, that's the car, the automobile. So how is it that the people of antiquity, so far back in time, were able to speak about modern modes of transportation? How were they able to know about airplanes and vehicles or automobiles? It's because they could see the future. That was the gift. To be able to see down the timeline of human history and record something of a message for us thousands of years later to pick up and read, so that we'd understand what was going on today. So, once again, I'm not trying to contravene anyone's spiritual convictions or spiritual beliefs. I'm trying to force people to see what this really means to today. I'm not against the belief that Jesus died for your sins and he's granted you access to heaven and salvation through Christ. I'm not here to fight or contradict that belief system. I'm here to tell you that it's deeper than that. It's a lot deeper than that. And the battle is between technology and spirituality. So once people no longer have a sense of spirituality, and if we accept microchips or other electronic surgical implants, then there's a potential that we could just become godless robots or some type of hybrid between man and machine. And is this evolution? Is this progress? Is this the next phase in human development? The merger between man and machine as some hybrid, some new creation walking the earth? Was this the path that we were heading to? I beg to differ. I don't believe that that's progression at all. To turn a human being into a robot or some type of cyborg, as if that's sophisticated or that represents advancement to humanity. On the contrary, I think it's a step backwards, because technology is designed to replace everything that we could have done through spiritual means. You ever think of somebody, you have somebody on your mind, and out of the blue they call you? Well, that's a form of telepathic communication. That's called telepathy. when that energy, people don't understand that our thoughts emit waves of energy. And when that energy goes back, it's not subject to space and distance. So someone can pick that up, and out of the blue, they might call you or want to reach out to you. This is the form of spiritual connection that we have. But now we have cell phones where if someone's on your mind, you just pick up the phone and call them. So with technology now, we have voice recognition, we have artificial intelligence, we have autonomous vehicles, and now we have Neurolink and brain chips and all this other stuff. And it's going to drastically change the landscape. It's going to dramatically change things. We're definitely shifting into a new era in time. And the acceleration and the speed that we're heading is very fast. So once we decide that as a human family, we're going to accept surgical implants of technological devices placed within us to assist us, whether for health, whether for whatever reason, if it becomes something, then this could have an effect on our spiritual selves. Because the goal has always been spirituality. That's the goal. Enlightenment, elevating one's consciousness, and raising their cognizance. It's always been about spiritual elevation. Because after life, we're going to be in the spirit realm. So life is a preparation for that. But now that we've been blindsided or detracted from the goal of spiritual awakening and spiritual development. And then the funny thing is, all the signs and indicators, when you look around and examine the landscape, everything is pointing to spiritual enlightenment and awakening. But we just don't recognize it, because you have to understand symbology. Take a look at the corporations and the logos that they use, how they incorporate a lot of third eye symbolism in the logos of their companies. Because the third eye is also known as the bird eye, also known as the pineal gland, which is also known as the it's the pineal place. It's where it allows you to access the spiritual realms. Even when you look at the symbol of money, the dollar sign, it's a serpent ascending a ladder. So that S and the line running through it, that's a serpent ascending a ladder. The ladder is Jacob's ladder. Jacob's ladder is the stairway to heaven, and that would be your spine. And the serpent is ascending up to the third eye. So that's also symbolized in the Christmas tree. What do you think that wrapping is, the trimming that you put around your Christmas tree? That's the serpent ascending to the top of the pine tree, pine, spine, and leading to the 5-point star at the top. And that is the place of enlightenment, the 5-point star. Because when man ate the apple, he got the knowledge of the angels and became a 5-point star. Hence, the forbidden fruit. The forbidden fruit is behind your forehead, which is the third eye. So the third eye behind the forehead is the forbidden fruit. And when we ate it, we became enlightened. We got the knowledge of the gods. So we went from animal nature to a spiritual nature. This is the esoteric teaching, by the way, so it sounds a little bit contradictory, but stick with me. And that's why when Adam and Eve became enlightened, the first thing they did was put clothes on, because they became aware of their animal condition and they wanted to cover their nakedness. So God created one person. Out of one person, he made two people. And then those two people tried the tree, which is three, the tree for the forbidden fruit. And they received the knowledge which made them a five-pointed star, which is the knowledge of the angels, transitioning from the animal to the spiritual. So the dollar sign is a symbol of spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment, third eye activation, enlightening the third eye or the pineal gland. The Christmas tree is a symbol of third eye activation, enlightening the third eye or the pineal gland. So there's a plethora of symbols out there in the world that are illustrating spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment, third eye activation, activating the pineal gland, the third eye, the bird eye, the eye of Horus, the forbidden fruit behind your forehead, whatever you want to call it, has many names. There's many symbols used to show this. So technology is something that needs to be regulated. It's something that needs to be discussed at length. But spirituality is the final frontier. It's all about understanding your essence, understanding your true self, which is your spiritual nature, understanding that you are a spirit being who lives inside of a physical body, who has consciousness. So I hope this message serves you well, and I hope everyone continues on the path of spirituality as you grow and develop, even within the confines of your faith tradition. You know, I'm not anti-religion. I'm actually an advocate for religion. However, I do believe that religion is coded information that is subject to interpretation. And I believe that the religious texts have not been explained properly or to their fullest extent. And a lot of times we're faced with the challenge that we're lost in traditionalism, we're lost in ceremonialism, but we don't understand what these things actually mean, because all these books are pointing to man and to woman, because I want my message to be inclusive. It's all pointing to us. These are empowerment manuals. This is how to become stronger and more powerful, to harness your own energy, to connect to God, to make yourself a conduit for the power of God. This is about channeling the electricity of God through you, so you can be a force in the earth realm. That's what these books are about, reaching your highest spiritual potential. And we need to understand this. These religious systems that have been presented to us, and the symbols that have been presented to us, you know, whether it's a man hanging on a cross, the pictorial representation of Jesus, we're seeing something graphic imagery of a man beaten beyond recognition, hanging on a cross. And yes, this might create emotionalism in people at this imagery, but you have to understand that this is symbolic of destruction of the flesh, in order to give rise to the spirit. And that's the goal. metaphorically speaking, not literally, but it's about the destruction of the flesh, which basically means to control the carnal nature. The carnal nature is what needs to be controlled. And I could go deeper, but just want to take the time to promote my 2 books that are right now available on Amazon Books. I wrote Decoded the Bible Explained, basically deconstructing religious concepts, ideas, and stories using symbology and breaking down words, so through etymology, in order to establish truth that bears relevance to today's modern society. And then I also wrote Decoded Part 2, The Secrets of the Lord, which basically discusses biblically based principles that have been utilized by the secular world or mainstream popular society in order to create what they call as success principles. Success principles that really came out of the Bible, but weren't really given credit. And yeah, so I hope these books bless you and assist you on your spiritual path.